Good morning. I'm joined by Criminal Division Assistant Attorney General Brian Benczkowski, New Jersey U.S. Attorney Craig Carpenito, and FBI Assistant Director Amy Hess. We also are fortunate to have on stage the two prosecutors handling this case, Assistant U.S. Attorney Justin Herring of New Jersey, but formerly, I'm proud to say, of Maryland, and Senior Counsel William Hall, Jr. of the Computer Crime and Intellectual Property section of our Criminal Division. We're here to announce that a federal grand jury in New Jersey indicted 2 Iranian citizens for a 3-year scheme that involved hacking into computers of hospitals, municipalities, public institutions, and businesses in the United States and in other countries. It involved a high-tech, sophisticated extortion plot. The defendants allegedly hijacked victims' computers and shut them down until the victims paid a ransom. The conspirators collected more than $6 million in extortion payments and caused more than $30 million in losses. Many of the victims were public agencies with missions that involved saving lives and performing other critical missions for the American people. The indictment was returned on November 26th and unsealed today in Newark, New Jersey. It alleges that Faramarz Shahi Savandi and Mohammad Mehdi Shah Mansouri use sophisticated software to execute their computer hacking and extortion scheme. Acting from inside Iran, the defendants developed and deployed a form of ransomware that they called SamSam. Ransomware is a malicious computer code that encrypts victims' computers and then holds the computers hostage, doesn't allow the victims to access the computers in any way until they agree to pay a ransom payment. Starting in December 2016, the defendants gained access to victims' computers by exploiting cybersecurity weaknesses. After gaining access to the computers, they remotely installed their ransomware. The ransomware encrypted the computer data, crippling the ability of the victims to operate their businesses and provide critical services to their customers. The victims included 2 major municipalities, the city of Atlanta, Georgia, and the city of Newark, New Jersey. The defendants also sought to interrupt critical transportation systems by infiltrating the Port of San Diego, California, and the Colorado Department of Transportation. In addition, the defendants infected the computers of 6 healthcare-related businesses and from across the country, impairing the ability of those companies to provide healthcare to sick and injured patients. The defendants chose to focus their scheme on public entities. They specifically are alleged to have chosen public entities as the targets of this fraud scheme, hospitals and municipalities. They knew that shutting down those computer systems would cause significant harm to innocent victims and would maximize their leverage, their ability to extort those ransom payments from the victim organizations. The indictment alleges that the defendants demanded payments in the form of a virtual currency known as Bitcoin. Bitcoin contributes to the increasing sophistication of criminal schemes that our prosecutors and agents confront. It is a common currency for criminal schemes, including websites that distribute child pornography and deadly opioid drugs, as well as ransomware and other tools used for extortion. The defendants allegedly communicated using the Tor network, an encrypted computer network designed to facilitate anonymous communication over the internet. I want to make clear that we support the use of encryption to safeguard private information and to protect security for American citizens, businesses, and government agencies. But this case highlights one of the challenges that law enforcement faces as a result of encryption that is designed specifically to disrupt law enforcement. And I'm grateful that you're going to hear from Amy Hess, who is one of the FBI's leading experts on the challenges that the government faces as a result of encryption technology. Sophisticated encryption technologies like the Tor network are used by cyber criminals to commit serious offenses. Those sophisticated technologies pose a real threat to the government's ability to keep people safe and to ensure that criminals and terrorists are caught and brought to justice. And I think it's important for us as law enforcement professionals to highlight that issue for the American people and for legislators to understand the challenges that we face. Now, we are often able to overcome them, as we have in this case, but in some cases we're not. And even when we are, it often takes time and significant resources in order for us to overcome those encryption techniques. Every sector of our economy is a target of malicious cyber activity, but the events described in this indictment highlight the urgent need from municipalities, public utilities, healthcare institutions, universities, and other public organizations to enhance their cybersecurity. And that's one of our goals this morning, is to use this opportunity to get out the word to potential victims, and everybody with a computer system is a potential victim, but particularly to those public entities, hospitals, healthcare providers, organizations that are vulnerable to this kind of scheme. We need to make sure they take all possible precautions to protect their systems in advance, but perhaps even more importantly, to make sure they have backups, because we found that some victims in this case were able to recover their systems if they had the appropriate backups, even though the perpetrators allegedly took steps to try to encrypt even the ability to back up those computers. So publicly revealing this nefarious hacking scheme will make it harder for the perpetrators and others like them to do business in the future. As a result of the indictment, these defendants are now fugitives from American justice. And American justice has a long arm, and we will wait, and eventually we're confident that we will take these perpetrators into custody. They face arrest and extradition to the United States in many nations that honor the rule of law. We call on all nations, all civilized nations, to prevent their citizens from using the internet to perpetrate fraud schemes in foreign countries. We do that here. We hold people accountable if they try to perpetrate fraud schemes elsewhere, and we expect foreign countries to do the same with citizens in their country. By making clear that criminal actions have consequences, we deter schemes to victimize the United States government, businesses, and citizens, and we help to protect foreign allies. I should add, as in every case, that the particular defendants charged in this indictment are presumed innocent in a court of law. They are presumed innocent unless and until they are proven guilty in a court of law. The allegations in this indictment are only allegations. But the case demonstrates our department's commitment to identifying and prosecuting cyber criminals regardless of where they base their operations. And that's one of the reasons why we're providing a photograph. We have a photograph of one of the defendants and obviously the names of both of them, which will help to identify them and hopefully ensure that they are taken into custody and held accountable. We are grateful for the outstanding work and collaboration between American and international law enforcement partners in this investigation. In particular, I want to thank 2 United Kingdom agencies and 2 Canadian agencies. In the UK, the National Crime Agency and the West Yorkshire Police, and in Canada, the Calgary Police Service and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. In the Justice Department, in addition to the folks who are with me today, our National Security Division and our Criminal Division's Office of International Affairs also provided critical support. And now I'd like to invite our Assistant Attorney General for the Criminal Division, Brian Benczkowski, to give some remarks.
Thank you, Rod. This case is another example of the hard work being done here at the Department of Justice every day, where we continue onward with business as usual, working with our law enforcement and U.S. attorney partners around the country. What's not business as usual is the conduct in this case. The indictment announced today is the first ever indictment against criminal actors for deploying a for-profit ransomware, hacking, and extortion scheme. And as the deputy noted, the 2 defendants, Mr. Savandi and Mr. Mansouri, both operating in Iran, authored and deployed a sophisticated malicious software called the SamSam ransomware to hack into networks and encrypt the computers of entities in the United States, including hospitals, schools, companies, government agencies, and other entities. The list is long. The City of Newark, the Colorado Department of Transportation, the Nebraska Orthopedic Hospital, Lab Corporation of America, MedStar Health, and the Port of San Diego are just a few of the victims in this case. The defendant's objective allegedly was to prevent these victims from accessing or using data on their compromised computers, which would force them to shut down or dramatically curtail their operations. According to the indictment, the defendants then extorted ransom payments from their victims by threatening to withhold or otherwise delete the decryption keys needed to unlock the data. For example, on May 28, 2016, the defendants allegedly accessed the network of Kansas Heart Hospital and deployed the ransomware to encrypt the hospital's computers. They then extorted the hospital by demanding a ransom payment in Bitcoin in exchange for the decryption keys to unlock the data. According to the indictment, the defendants conducted online searches concerning the hospital and accessed its website a few days before the attack. This was just one alleged example of the defendants' efforts to select and target their victims. These defendants didn't just indiscriminately cross their fingers and hope their ransomware randomly compromised just any computer system. Rather, they deliberately engaged in an extreme form of 21st century digital blackmail, attacking and extorting vulnerable victims like hospitals and schools, victims they knew would be willing and able to pay. As the deputy noted, the defendants allegedly hacked and extorted more than 200 victims and collected more than $6 million in ransom payments. Victims also incurred an additional $30 million in losses because of their inability to access their data. The specific charges in the indictment unsealed today in the District of New Jersey charge Savandi and Mansouri with 1, conspiracy to commit wire fraud, 2, conspiracy to commit fraud and related activity in connection with computers, 3, intentional damage to a protected computer, and 4, transmitting a demand, the ransom request, in relation to damaging a protected computer. And as the DAG noted, these defendants, as a result of this indictment, are now fugitives from justice. This case demonstrates the Department of Justice's commitment to identifying and prosecuting cyber criminals wherever they choose to base their operations. We'll continue to work together with our law enforcement partners here in the United States and around the world, along with victims, to gather evidence and build cases to ensure that there are no safe havens for cyber criminals to operate. And most importantly, and you'll hear in more detail from my colleagues on the stage, we want to get the word out, the word that every sector of our economy is a potential target of malicious cyber activity. The events described in this indictment highlight the need for businesses, healthcare institutions, universities, and other entities to emphasize cybersecurity, to increase their threat awareness, and to harden their computer networks. Before I turn it over to U.S. Attorney Craig Carpenito to discuss the charges in more detail, I'd also like to extend the same gratitude that the DAG extended to our law enforcement counterparts in the UK and Canada, the National Crime Agency, the West Yorkshire Police, the Calgary Police Service, and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, along with a team of FBI investigators and the 2 outstanding young prosecutors behind me, Justin Herring and Bill Hall, for their great work on this case. Craig, it's over to you, and it's great to be here with you today.
I'm going to just underscore a couple of the points that Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein has already made, as well as AAG Benczkowski. SanSam ransomware is a dangerous escalation in cybercrime. Most cybercrimes are at bottom about theft. This is a new type of cyber criminal. Money is not their sole objective. They're seeking to harm our institutions and our critical infrastructure. You heard the sensitive targets that were targeted here: hospitals, cities, transportation centers, our ports. They're trying to impact our way of life. They're hitting the most critical targets because they want to maximize their profits, but they're also trying to maximize the damage that they can do. And the damage that's being done to these victims, that it's going to impact upon our society, is more than just a side effect of the profit motive. In this case, the harm far exceeded the profit the perpetrators were able to generate. You heard from AAG Benczkowski. They generated approximately $6 million in profits in ransom. They did well over $30 million in damage to about 15% of the victims alone. There were over 200 victims here. 34 victims alone amounted to about $30 million in damage. They worked hard to identify the most vulnerable targets that they could. They targeted victims. They did online research. They looked for the institutions that could afford least to have downtime. They shut down businesses. They were able to, over time, perfect their art. They got better at this every day, right? What they did was they found ways to not just infect the system, but to get into the backups, to get to the maximum number of computers. They used techniques like doing this in off-business hours so that they could hit these vulnerable institutions at points in time where their IT infrastructures wouldn't be able to respond, detect, or prevent the attacks in real time, getting to the maximum number of computers and hopefully getting to the backup tapes. They used sophisticated techniques. The encryptions that they did were targeted and they scanned for known vulnerabilities using European-based private servers to launch their attacks. By crippling regular business operations, they put these institutions in a spot where they really couldn't fight back without paying the ransom. And after encrypting, the extortion was perpetrated by leaving a ransom note in the form of a file on each of the computers. The ransom notes usually threatened to permanently delete the description keys for the victim's computers after 7 days. A copy of one of those ransom notes is attached as attachment A to the indictment. That's for the city of Newark ransomware case. They used Bitcoin exchangers to convert their ill-gotten gains into Iranian rial. And the main reason we're here talking about this today is because the public plays an important role in the department's ability to investigate, detect, prosecute these crimes, and importantly, educate people about the type of impact and the type of risks that are out there. Individuals or institutions who believe they may have been a victim of a ransomware attack should contact law enforcement immediately. Law enforcement can help victims understand what happened, share information about related incidents or malware, and ensure proper investigation and preservation of evidence. That type of education is the best defense to make sure that these perpetrators don't continue in their efforts. The District of New Jersey would like to thank the DAG for its continued commitment to the investigation and prosecution of emerging cybercrime. I'd also like to thank AAG Benczkowski and his team at CSIPS for their collaboration on this prosecution. But finally, most of all, I think we should thank u.s.a. and the chief of my cybercrime unit, Justin Herring, and his colleague, Bill Hall. These are the talented young prosecutors who work on these cases that make them possible. Their unwavering dedication to rooting out cybercriminals is incredible, and without resources like this, we couldn't get these cases done. These are some of the most difficult cases to pursue, the difficult cases to figure out. And finally, I want to thank the special agent in charge of the Newark Division's FBI office, Greg Erie, and his team of outstanding agents from the FBI, who I see in the back, who've doggedly pursued these perpetrators, through thick and thin for the past 2 years. Without them, none of this would be possible. Thank you.
Good morning. Mimi Hess for the FBI. Today's actions charging 2 Iranian cyber actors with launching the SamSam ransomware are the latest in a series of indictments of overseas cyber criminals. It illustrates a continuing trend of malicious cyber activity emanating from Iran. As cyber threats evolve and cyber criminals develop more sophisticated techniques, so do we. The criminals believe they were masking their identities on the dark web. However, this case shows that anonymizers may not make you as anonymous as you think you are. They use Bitcoin to avoid detection, but this case shows that digital currency can be traceable. And through our valued partnerships, not just with our great law enforcement partners in the U.S. and abroad, but with our partners in private industry and with the victims of these crimes, we will find criminals and hold them accountable. Through persistence and collaboration, we'll disrupt not only the criminal activity, but also the ill-gotten livelihood of these actors. Apprehending those charged today presents a challenge, for sure, but I want to be clear, regardless of where a criminal resides, we will pursue. We will make traveling, business relations, and networking painful for those who commit these acts. We will stay on the case, and we will catch them when they slip up. This investigation began because a victim came forward and reported the crime to the local FBI field office. And the case continued through the courage and cooperation of many other victims. I cannot stress enough the importance of reporting cybercrimes. If you're a victim, you're encouraged to report directly to your local FBI field office and online through ic3.gov. We understand that companies and institutions are under immense pressure during and after cyber attacks and may be reluctant to report breaches. The FBI can help by providing you with information you didn't already have and preventing you or someone else from becoming a victim again. This indictment is a culmination of a lot of hard work by the men and women of those agencies represented here today. And I also want to thank our partners in the United Kingdom and Canada. We'll continue to work with our partners in law enforcement and in industry and use every tool at our disposal to fight cybercrime. We all need to do our part to make sure that our systems are as strong, as secure, and as protected as possible. Clearly, there is no guarantee against exploitation, but we can't stress enough the importance of good cyber protocol and preventative measures. The FBI has posted guidance on ic3.gov that can help you secure your information, and we must do whatever we can together to stop these criminals, to make ransomware less profitable, and to keep our networks, our information, and our people safe. Thank you.
Nicole Novice is our OPA expert on how they should be building the questions today.
Thank you.
Mr. Benczkowski, can you tell us to what extent was there any connection between these two and the government of Iran?
There's nothing of that sort that's alleged in this indictment, Pete.
Yeah, hi. I wanted to follow up on the comment the DAG made before he left about how even though they're located in Iran, he seemed very confident that at some point you may be able to extradite them. I mean, what led him to say that? I mean, are these folks that tend to travel a lot to countries that have an extradition treaty with the United States, as far as you know, or why is he so confident about that?
I think we're always hopeful in these circumstances that we'll be able to catch them in travel or by some other means. And we'll work with entities like Interpol to file our red notices to restrict their travel, and hopefully, if they slip up, we'll pick them up and we'll be able to get them back here and prosecute them.
Could you tell us a little bit more about the Atlanta case? What happened in that case specifically that you find that was maybe out of the norm, and did Atlanta pay up?
We have not in the indictment, and I can defer at some point to get into greater detail about Atlanta in as much as we're able to. We have not in the indictment noted which of the victims paid and which ones didn't. Atlanta was a case where their systems were compromised and encrypted, as I understand it, for several days. And you can imagine in a municipality the kind of things problems that would cause.
I assume this, just related to that, I assume the Atlanta case is the same case where it became public and was reported on. Is that right?
I believe so.
Amy, may I ask you a question? What is the I understand your prevention message here, which is obviously very important. But for those for whom it fails, and they are compromised, and they are hit with ransomware, what is the FBI's advice on whether they should pay the ransom?
Clearly, victims are encouraged to not pay the ransom. It's understood that they have a lot at stake, but by doing so, of course, it exacerbates behavior and encourages others to do the same. So our message continues to be encouraging companies and victims to not pay.
Can I follow up on that?
Sure.
Sorry. But if they don't pay the ransom and they don't have backups, they lose their data, and the value of that data may far exceed whatever it is that they're asked to pay in ransom.
Yes. And again, we encourage companies and victims not to pay. Clearly, they have a lot at stake, but we encourage them not to pay.
When they do pay, do they get everything opened up again? Does it work?
Not always, and that's the other risk that the companies and the victims face, is because just because you pay doesn't mean that the criminals are going to actually do what they said they would do.
But in the $6 million worth of ransom, did they get their data back? Last question, that was my last question. Did they get their data back when they paid their ransom?
I can't comment to that at this time.
We'll take a question from Kevin and then Jeff again.
Sorry. What portion of the victims came to you to report that they had been victimized versus what you discovered later on that they may have been victims and you found out on your own?
As far as how many victims came to us directly versus how many we found out about, I can't get into the exact numbers at this time, but basically it was a combination of both.
So are we still in a situation where the majority of cities and companies do not report ransomware attacks?
I would say that it's getting better because as most companies and victims now see this continuing to be a problem and a trend, they're more likely to come forward, first of all, to prevent an attack to happening to themselves again, but also to prevent an attack from happening to someone else. So I would say that we are seeing an increasing number of reports that are coming to us.
But most aren't.
Yes, at this time, I would say, again, I don't know of course, we don't know what we don't know, so we don't know how many might be out there. I would surmise that it is probably not the majority yet, but we are seeing an increasing number, increasing trend.
We'll take one more question. Mike?
Just to follow up on a question earlier, did any municipalities pay the ransom at all? of these victims?
We're not going to comment.
Yeah, it's the same answer.
Yeah.
Same answer, which is the indictment doesn't contain any information like that, and we're not able to talk about that.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks a
all.
lot.
If anyone has